The wind cut through the empty alley like a whisper from another world. Cold rain soaked the cobblestones, washing away the faint traces of paw prints that told a story no one cared to read. Under a half-broken wooden crate, a small German shepherd puppy trembled. His fur, once golden and soft, was now clumped with mud. His collar too tight for his thin neck still bore the name Rex, but no one called him by that name anymore. He had learned the silence of abandonment, the language of hunger, the ache of nights that never seemed to end. Not far from him, behind the rusted bins, a thin black and white cat watched with wary eyes. She had no name, only scars. Street cats didn't have names. They had stories that nobody asked to hear. For weeks she had survived by sneaking behind restaurants and stealing leftovers, her ribs pressing sharply against her thin fur. When she saw the puppy for the first time, she thought he was just another creature trying to live through the cold. But when she heard his faint whimper, something in her heart, something she thought was long dead, stirred again. That night, while thunder cracked the sky, the cat approached slowly. The puppy lifted his head, ears twitching, eyes wide with fear. He tried to growl, but it came out as a weak cough. The cat stopped a few feet away, dropping a half-eaten piece of bread she had stolen. Then she sat. The rain dripped from her whiskers. She didn't move closer. She just watched. The puppy stared at the bread for a long time, then at her. Hunger won over fear. He crawled forward and took a small bite. The cat blinked once slowly and turned her head away, pretending not to care. But inside she felt something she hadn't felt in years: relief. The next day they met again. The same alley, the same rain. She brought him a piece of fish from the market's trash. He wagged his tail weakly this time. Slowly, night after night, they became silent companions in the same forgotten corner of the city. No words, no sounds, just two lost souls breathing in the same rhythm. Winter crept in. The rain turned to mist, then frost. Rex's fur was matted, his legs shaky, but whenever the cat curled up beside him, he felt a little less cold. They shared warmth like two broken hearts trying to stitch themselves together. One morning the cat didn't return. Rex waited all day, ears perked at every sound. When the sun sank, he began to whimper again, the sound of loneliness, raw and small. The next day, she came limping, her paw bleeding. A cruel shopkeeper had thrown a stone at her for stealing fish. She tried to hide her pain, but Rex saw the limp. He licked her paw gently. The cat hissed at first, but didn't pull away. That night, they lay together under the crate, sharing the last dry space they had. Their breaths made little clouds in the freezing air. Days passed. They learned the rhythm of the streets, the sound of footsteps that meant danger, the smell of bread that meant hope, the echo of engines that meant to hide. But hunger grew stronger than courage. One afternoon, the cat ventured too far. Rex tried to follow, but his legs were weak. He watched from behind the crate as she crossed the street toward a food stand. A car honked. Time slowed. The cat froze, eyes wide. The car didn't stop. The sound that followed broke something deep inside him. He ran, dragging his body through the mud, barking helplessly. People yelled. The car disappeared. He reached her side. Her small body trembled, blood mixing with rain. She looked up at him, blinking slowly, as if apologizing for leaving him alone again. He pressed his nose against her fur, whining softly. The cat's paw lifted once, touching his muzzle, then went still. The world went quiet. The rain stopped, but everything felt colder. He stayed beside her all night. The streetlights flickered above, their pale glow reflecting in his tearful eyes. He didn't sleep. He didn't move. When morning came, a shopkeeper found them. He shouted at the puppy, kicking dirt toward him. Rex didn't react. Only when the man lifted the cat's body did Rex bark a sound filled with desperation and grief. The man threw a stone and Rex ran. He didn't know where to go. He just ran until his legs gave out. He collapsed in an empty park, under a tree stripped bare by winter. For days he refused to eat. The wind howled through the branches, carrying echoes of the cat's meow. Sometimes he thought he heard her beside him, felt her warmth against his side. But when he opened his eyes, there was only the cold. A woman walking her dog found him one morning, barely breathing. She wrapped him in a blanket, whispering softly. He didn't fight. She took him home, fed him warm milk, cleaned his wounds. But his eyes never shone again. In the corner of her house, Rex would often stare at the empty spot near the door, as if waiting for someone small and silent to return. At night, when the house was quiet, he would crawl to that corner, lay his head down, and let out a soft whine. Not of pain, of memory. The woman thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. In his heart, he still saw her. The cat who once brought him bread in the rain. The cat who taught him that love could exist even in hunger and fear. He never forgot her scent, her eyes, the warmth they shared beneath the broken crate. Years later, when Rex grew old, his legs could no longer carry him. One winter evening, the woman found him lying still in that same corner, his paw stretched toward the empty air. His eyes were peaceful, almost smiling. Outside, snow fell softly, covering the streets where a lonely cat had once walked. And for a brief moment, it felt as if two souls, one barking, one purring, were together again somewhere beyond the rain. The snow fell heavier that night, wrapping the small house in silence. The woman who had cared for Rex stood beside his still body, tears glistening in her tired eyes. She whispered a prayer, then covered him with a soft blanket. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows, a low, hollow song. Somewhere, beyond the cold and the stars, something stirred. Rex opened his eyes, but he wasn't in the house anymore. The pain was gone. The weight in his legs, the hunger, the loneliness, it had all disappeared. He stood in a field of soft light, tall grass swaying gently under a golden sky. Everything felt alive, yet quiet. He took a step forward and barked softly. His voice echoed far, but came back gentle. Then he saw her, the cat. She was sitting under a tree, her fur clean, her paw healed, her eyes glowing softly like emeralds in the sunlight. Rex froze. For a moment he couldn't move. Then she meowed once, softly, as if to say, "You took your time." He ran to her, tail wagging furiously, his heart flooding with something he hadn't felt in so long, joy. She brushed her head against his neck, purring deeply. For a long while, neither of them spoke, because they didn't need to. The silence was full of everything they had lost, everything they had once been denied. The field stretched endlessly, and the air smelled like rain and warmth. They walked side by side, retracing invisible paths that led nowhere but peace. Days passed, or maybe it was eternity. Time didn't matter anymore. In that quiet place, they were free. But down below, in the world they had left, things didn't stop moving. The woman buried Rex under the same tree where she had first found him, marking the grave with a small wooden heart. She often came there, bringing flowers. Sometimes, when the wind blew softly through the branches, she swore she could hear faint paw steps and a distant purr. Life went on. Seasons turned. Children grew up, cities changed, and the old park faded into memory. But one rainy evening many years later, a boy named Sami found himself lost in that same forgotten alley. The rain poured just as it had that night so long ago. He was small, shivering, his clothes soaked. He crouched beneath an old crate to hide from the storm. Then he heard it, the faint sound of a bark. He looked up, startled. A small German shepherd puppy stood at the edge of the alley, watching him with curious eyes. And beside the puppy, perched on the railing, was a cat black and white, her tail flicking slowly, eyes glowing softly even through the rain. The boy blinked, rubbing his eyes. The figures didn't vanish. The puppy barked once, gently, then turned and walked a few steps as if asking him to follow. The cat leapt down and brushed against the boy's leg, her fur surprisingly warm. Without understanding why, he stood and followed them. They led him through the winding streets, through puddles and broken lights until they reached the park. There, beneath a snow-dusted tree, the puppy stopped. The cat sat beside him. Sami noticed something in the ground, a small wooden heart, half buried in leaves, weathered by time. He knelt and brushed the dirt away, reading the faint words carved into it. Rex. The cat meowed, the sound soft but filled with something ancient. Then, in the blink of an eye, both the puppy and the cat began to fade, like mist under sunlight. Sami gasped, reaching out, but they were gone. Only the wind remained, gentle and kind, wrapping around him like an embrace. When he looked down again, the wooden heart was glowing faintly. He picked it up and held it close. Somehow he didn't feel cold anymore. That night, Sami returned home. His parents, frantic with worry, hugged him tightly. He didn't tell them what he saw, he couldn't explain it. But later, as he fell asleep, he heard soft footsteps by his bed. A bark. A purr. He smiled in his dreams. Somewhere beyond time, Rex and the cat walked once more through the fields of light. They watched over the boy, their bond unbroken. The cat climbed a stone and gazed at the horizon. "Do you think they ever understand?" she asked softly. Rex looked at her, his ears twitching. "Maybe not," he said, his voice warm. "But they feel it." "That's enough." The cat purred, leaning against him. The light around them shimmered like stars in water. Far away, thunder rolled, a memory of a world they once knew. But it no longer frightened them. They had lived through hunger, loss, cruelty, and cold. Yet love had found them even in pain. Even in death. On Earth, spring came again. Flowers bloomed near the tree where Rex rested. A stray cat gave birth nearby. Among her kittens was one with fur just like his, golden with dark ears. And one small kitten with black and white fur curled beside him, purring softly. The woman who still tended the park saw them and smiled. "You two," she whispered. "You remind me of someone." She left a bowl of milk by the roots of the tree. The kittens drank, tails touching. Above them, the wooden heart still hung from a branch, carved words now faded but not forgotten. The wind carried the softest sounds, an echo of bark and purr blending into one. And for those who listened closely, it almost sounded like laughter, the kind born not from joy but from peace. Somewhere, beyond the edge of rain and memory, two lost souls finally rested, together forever, where no one could ever hurt them again. Years rolled like quiet rivers, washing memories into corners of the city that no one noticed anymore. The park where Rex slept changed hands. Benches were replaced, grass was trimmed, and children's laughter filled the air again. But beneath the oldest tree, the wooden heart still hung from its branch, faint letters whispering through the seasons. On rainy evenings, when the streetlights shimmered on puddles, people swore they saw shapes moving near that tree, a golden shadow and a darker one beside it, circling once before vanishing into mist. Stories began to spread. Some said it was the spirits of two loyal friends guarding the park. Others said it was just tricks of light. But every dog that passed that place stopped for a moment, ears forward, tail still. Every cat that crossed the park slowed, sniffed the air, and gave a single meow toward the roots before walking on. No one taught them to do that. It was as if memory itself lived in the soil. In a nearby neighborhood, a boy named Summy, now grown into a young man, walked the streets on nights when the rain fell heavy. He carried in his pocket a small wooden heart, the one he had found years ago, smoothed by time and his fingers. He never forgot the eyes of the puppy or the warmth of the cat's fur. Whenever life felt heavy, he would visit the park, sit beneath the tree, and talk softly into the wind. "You're still here, aren't you?" he would whisper. And somewhere beyond the rain, he always felt he wasn't alone. One night, as thunder murmured across the horizon, Sammy found a small injured kitten near the edge of the street golden fur, trembling in the cold. Without thinking, he lifted it into his coat and ran home. He fed it milk, wrapped it in a towel, and set it near the fire. The kitten blinked at him with sleepy brown eyes that looked achingly familiar. When it purred for the first time, Sammy felt his heart twist. The sound was soft, rhythmic, like a distant echo from another life. Outside, rain beat against the windows, and for a second he thought he saw, reflected in the glass, the outline of a dog sitting beside the firelight, tail wagging slowly. He turned, but there was nothing there, only warmth and silence. In another part of the city, stray animals had found strange safety. The alley where Rex once shivered was now a shelter built by volunteers. The first mural painted on its wall showed a cat and a German shepherd sharing a loaf of bread under a stormy sky. People passing by often stopped, drawn by something they couldn't explain. "There's sadness in their eyes," one woman said. "But it's gentle, like they forgave the world." At night, the mural seemed alive. The paint glistened as if wet. The streetlight flickered softly like raindrops falling again after all those years. Children visiting the shelter gave names to the animals Rex, Shadow, Hope, Whisker, but none of them knew they were repeating an old story carried quietly through time. Still, the dogs wagged their tails, the cats purred against their legs, and the circle of kindness grew a little wider. Somewhere beyond clouds and distance, Rex watched with the cat by his side. From their field of light they saw the city glowing, the humans building warmth where once there was neglect. The cat lay with her head on his paws, eyes half closed. "They remember us," she murmured. Rex gazed down at the mural, his tail sweeping the grass. "Not by name," he said, "but by heart. That's enough." The cat smiled. "Do you miss it?" He thought for a while, the soft wind brushing his fur. "Sometimes," he admitted. The smell of rain, the sound of footsteps, the weight of hunger, it made every small kindness feel like the whole world. The cat purred quietly. "Then maybe we'll visit again." And so they did. Whenever a lonely animal trembled in the dark, a soft warmth would appear, sometimes a bark in the distance, sometimes a shadow curling beside them for the night. The living never saw their faces, but they felt their comfort. Some called it luck. Others called it hope. But those who listened closely on nights heavy with rain could hear two heartbeats moving together, one steady and loyal, the other calm and silent, reminding the world that even in sorrow, love never dies. Sometimes on nights when the city slept beneath the hush of drizzle, the wind itself seemed to remember. It would sweep through the alleys and carry the faintest sound, a bark woven into a purr like a secret lullaby for the lost. In the shelter, new volunteers came and went, but each one felt the strange calm that lived in that place. No matter how many storms passed, no animal there ever shivered alone. They said the air held warmth that couldn't be explained, a hush that soothed frightened creatures the moment they crossed the door. Sammy visited often with his golden kitten, now strong and playful. The kitten followed him everywhere, sometimes stopping at the mural and staring up at the painted cat as if recognizing an old friend. Sammy would smile, stroke its fur, and whisper, "You've been here before, haven't you?" The kitten would blink slowly, then curl against his chest, heart beating in a rhythm that matched his own. Life carried forward in small, gentle miracles like that. The woman who had once rescued Rex grew older, her hair turning silver, her hands trembling from age. Yet every morning she walked to the park, bringing flowers to the wooden heart still tied to the tree. One winter day she slipped on the ice and could not rise. As snow began to fall, she closed her eyes, whispering to the wind, "Take me home." When the paramedics arrived, they found her smiling faintly, her hand resting against the carved heart. That night, in the field of light, Rex lifted his head. He heard a familiar voice calling softly. The cat stirred beside him. "Another one comes," she murmured. Through the glow walked the woman, younger again, eyes bright, holding the same gentle smile she once gave the frightened puppy years ago. Rex ran to her, tail wagging, and she knelt to embrace him. "You waited for me," she said, tears of light glimmering down her cheeks. The cat circled them both, purring in welcome. In that world beyond sorrow, the three of them walked together beneath trees that never lost their leaves. Below, in the living world, spring returned. The shelter expanded, funded by donations from people who had heard the old story of the cat and the dog. They called it Rex and Whisker Haven. On the day of its reopening, hundreds came, families, children, old strays rescued from the streets. Sammy stood before them with his cat in his arms and told their tale of friendship, loss, and how compassion could turn even pain into legacy. As he spoke, rain began to fall softly, glistening like silver threads in sunlight. Everyone laughed, but Sammy only looked upward, his voice trembling. "It's them," he whispered. "They always come when it rains." The raindrops tapped gently on the mural, making it shine as if alive once more. Inside the shelter, the animals settled quietly. A dog curled beside a cat in the same crate, their breathing sensed in calm rhythm. The volunteers smiled, unaware that history was repeating itself in small, perfect circles. That night, after everyone had gone, the lights in the shelter flickered. The doors, though locked, creaked open slightly. The golden kitten raised its head, ears twitching. From the darkness of the hallway came a soft sound pause on the floor, light and steady. Two shapes appeared at the threshold. A tall dog with eyes like embers and a cat with fur that shimmered silver white under the dim light. The kitten didn't move, didn't feel fear. It only watched as the spirit stepped forward. The ghostly cat brushed her tail across the kitten's back. The ghostly dog touched noses with it. For a heartbeat, the air glowed faintly, warm and full of peace. Then the figures faded, leaving the scent of rain and wild grass behind. The kitten curled against its sleeping companion, eyes closing. The shelter grew still again. Outside, the storm softened into mist, and moonlight slipped between clouds like forgiveness. Somewhere, far beyond what humans could see, Rex and the cat stood at the edge of the field once more, watching. The woman sat nearby, humming softly. The dog glanced down at the world below, his gaze full of tenderness. "They're safe now," he said. The cat nodded. "Then our work is done." She stepped closer, pressing her head beneath his chin. Together they turned toward the horizon, where dawn broke endlessly, painting the sky in colors too gentle to name. Yet even as they walked away, their bond lingered, a whisper across time, a lesson carried in every small act of kindness. On Earth, children still pointed at the mural and asked who the dog and cat were. Parents told them they were friends who never gave up on each other. And when the rain came, every creature in the shelter slept peacefully. Because somewhere in the rhythm of raindrops, two hearts still beat as one.